Hey, I'm Olivia, and you're listening to Soarin' Around WDW. That noise is now going to mean that we have some Disney news to talk about. Now that I have creative control, since Regan has stepped away for a little bit from the podcast, I'm going to go ahead and throw that noise in there for all my nostalgia girlies and boys who know where that sound comes from. That's definitely a Disney Channel throwback, but I'm curious to see how long it takes Regan to notice that I threw this in here. So this means that we do have some Disney news to discuss today, and there have been a couple of interesting news pieces over the last couple of weeks since I did a news update. The first actually being related to that noise. Christy Carlson Romano was actually shot in the face when she went with her husband clay pigeon shooting for his birthday in Austin, Texas, where they live. And she said in an Instagram post that she was shooting the clay pigeons with her husband safely. The people that were in the same area in another party next to her were not behaving so safely and literally shot her in the face. She had multiple wounds on her face, including close to her eye. She almost lost vision in that eye, and there are still some pieces remaining of like gold bullet that are stuck and they aren't able to get out. So glad that she's okay, but hopefully everything will stay okay with her vision. That is super scary, but just had to throw that piece in there. I know it is not parks related, but it is Disney related and obviously related to our new little noise indicating it's news time. Another piece of news that I saw that just happened this past week, due to a power outage on February 10th, nearly every ride at Magic Kingdom was down, which this rarely happens. And so at the time that I'm recording this, there wasn't a full explanation as to why or what happened, but they were down for a good amount of time, which is really unfortunate for people if this was their only Disney day. All I can think is this would be a tragedy for a challenge run. But yeah, very big power outage at the Magic Kingdom towards the end of the evening on February 10th. And then the Eagles player Jalen Hurt was also spotted at the parks the day after his Super Bowl win on the 10th as well. And he was in the celebration parade celebrating the Eagles' victory over the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. The Seas at Epcot was announced a while ago that they would be transitioning from a long-term rehabilitation center for animals to more of a shorter-term rehabilitation center. The quote that I read said, "As strandlings increase, critical care facilities are becoming overwhelmed. So by shifting our focus, we open up space at the Seas for more of those urgent cases. This helps relieve the pressures on overcrowded facilities, supports the MRP's efforts, and boosts our contribution to manatee conservation, which is what excites me most about shifting from long-term care to short-term rehabilitation." And that was in an interview with a cast member, kind of explaining why they were making this shift. And when the manatees started to disappear, the dolphins started to disappear, people started to panic and started to worry, is this the end of the Seas? But the good news is it's not the end. It sounds like they're just shifting their focus, and they do now have two new manatees who have come to the Seas at Epcot. Their names are Cider and Minnow, and they were revealed to guests just here at the beginning of February. So very excited to hear that there still will be animals. I know a lot of people really enjoy going to the Seas. My kids definitely do, and seeing the animals, and manatees are just a unique animal that you don't get to see many other places. So it is cool to see them over at Epcot. But that's all the news that I have for today. Now enjoy today's episode where Dad and I finish out Tomorrowland and get into some information about the castle as we head towards the end of our Parks of the Present Magic Kingdom series. All right, so welcome to this week's episode of Soarin' Around WDW. We are going to be talking today about the dining experiences in Tomorrowland, kind of finishing that out, and then moving on towards the center of the park where the castle sits before our last episode next week of this part of the series in Main Street. So going to start today off with the dining in Tomorrowland. There's actually no sit-down restaurants currently in Tomorrowland. These are all quick service or cart type restaurants. And there's been a lot of changes over the years with one place in particular, and that is where we're going to start out, which is Cosmic Rays Starlight Cafe. This opened January 1st, 1994, and it was previously called Tomorrowland Terrace before the Tomorrowland remodel, which I found interesting because there is today still a Tomorrowland Terrace, which we'll talk about. But this is a quick service restaurant where you order at the front. There's three different sections, one with burgers, one with more like chicken sandwiches, and then one with more salads. And what they've served at this restaurant has stayed pretty much the same over the years with a few additions and removals between different kinds of salads. And occasionally they had different bowls or things like that. But for the most part, it's been a burger place. They did used to have a toppings bar, which I believe now is reopened. And it is a pretty easy in and out place. It is often very busy and it does have a lot of seating. It's inside, so it's air conditioned, which is really nice. But there are the three different sections are called different bays. So there's bay one, two, and three. Bay one is chicken, bay two is burgers, and bay three is soup and salad sandwiches. And the restaurant is also home to the audio animatronic Sunny Eclipse. And this is where he performs. He was added in 1995, and his stage is actually on the top floor of this elevator that can be raised and lowered. I guess it used to be raised and people would be loaded kind of below and raised up for live acts to perform at the restaurant that I've seen occasionally. This place was where live acts would come and perform, and then this audio animatronic would be there intermittently, kind of whenever they didn't have live acts. And during the Tomorrowland Terrace years, when it was called Tomorrowland Terrace instead of Cosmic Rays Starlight Cafe, that was back in the 1970s. The stage was primarily occupied by Michael Iceberg and his Iceberg machine synthesizer. Now it's occasionally used for school music groups, is what I read. I don't ever recall any school groups being there. I do remember on occasion the live music, but mostly people would know it as the audio animatronic Sunny Eclipse figure up there singing his normal tunes. There was also the person who voiced Sunny Eclipse was named Kai David or bluesman Kai David, and he was born David Raskin. He recorded the voice for the character at a studio in George Wilkins' home. And Sunny Eclipse is supposed to be his character, is a Zorky musician from the city of Unork on planet Zork, where the life primarily was lived underground to avoid the methane clouds on the surface, and the entertainment capital of his planet. Sonny's Unork upbringing led him to the music business, and he began touring around the galaxy. After he lost his backup singers during a gig on Mars, he met the invisible space angels who accompanied him ever since, then found a nice long-term gig to serve as the in-house musician at the Starlight Lounge in Cosmic Rays Starlight Cafe's first Earth franchise in Tomorrowland. So that's the little background story, which cracked me up, about Sunny Eclipse and kind of what they made up about him to make his character into being, because he's not IP. He is, or intellectual property of Disney. He's not a character from a movie. It's just something that they made up specifically for this restaurant. And he does have a little playlist of different songs. One is My Name is Sunny Eclipse. Then Out in Space is another one about Earth's beauty. Hello Space Angels, which is an appreciation song for his backup singers. Gravity Blues, Starlight Soup and Salad about the restaurant's menu. Bright Little Star, which is a love song. Planetary Boogie, and Unork about his hometown. This restaurant, I feel like, is one that we almost always eat at when we're in Magic Kingdom because it's at a convenient location. It does have a lot of seating. It is air conditioned. And as we've talked about a few times, there aren't a ton of places in Magic Kingdom with great seating. So I feel like that's what's always attracted us to this, as well as they had the toppings bar, which was always nice for my husband, and I know you said Doreen too, really like to kind of spice up their burgers and put different stuff on them. And you could go get whatever you wanted. And they also have some salad options too, which Maddie appreciated more than just like a Caesar salad. They have some different things. So that's always been a go-to for us. But I do remember as a kid visiting this a lot and listening to Sunny Eclipse sing his songs. But what do you remember about this restaurant? And do you remember it when it wasn't Starlight Cafe?
Oh, sure. I remember when we went in 1978 when I was a senior in high school during the Easter break coming down from Michigan. We saw it was just some rock band that came up
Oh,
from the
really?
elevator up. This is well before Sunny Eclipse,
Yeah.
and it was probably some local rock band playing. We thought, that was pretty cool
Yeah.
because it elevates from the utilidors. They load in the utilidors, and then it comes up. So I remember that. So that was interesting. And I think for the longest time, it was one of the largest fast food restaurants in the U.S. or maybe even the world, as
Oh,
far as
wow.
seating and as far as size. And it held that record for a long time. But I think there's another place somewhere in Europe now that there's a bigger one. But yeah, so that's interesting. Um, I always liked it. I thought the food was so, but it was a great place to go to cool off. There was always seats. Always, if you went around lunch or dinner time, that was always very busy, as you mentioned. You couldn't hear Sunny Clips all that well because there's so many people in there half the time, it seemed like. But one thing I did like, they used to be able to go out on a balcony and eat outside. Do you remember that before they enclosed the balcony?
Yeah.
Now
Mm-hmm.
they've enclosed it, so it's air conditioned. But I used to like to go when the weather was nice, maybe not so much in the summer, but in some of our wintertime or spring visits, go sit on the balcony and you get a view of the castle. It's just a real nice place to hang out. But I know they've been closed that since. I always liked it. We always stopped there. Typically, we'd always get lunch there or something. And yeah, fond
Yeah, I feel
memories.
like it's pretty typical park food. Like it's not amazing, but it's fine and it's pretty reasonably priced, like $10 to $15 ish for an entree. They do have different kids options as well. But overall, yeah, it's nothing super special except for the Sunny Eclipse audio animatronic. I feel like most 90s and early 2000s Disney kids really remember that fondly and just always go there kind of more for that than the actual food, obviously. One thing that we do like about this that we've used this for during a couple of Halloween parties is there is a pretty big family bathroom that's indoors there. And
Yes.
we've used it as a place to change with the kids out of costumes into pajamas quite a few times. And then it's also easier if you have multiple kids you're trying to take to the bathroom. There's one toilet, there's also a diaper changing table in that family bathroom, and there's space where the kids can stay. You can lock the door and they're all kind of in your sight instead of in the big stalled bathroom. So that's one tip that if you have a lot of kids or you're by yourself trying to take all the kids to the bathroom. I remember one time I had all four kids, so I had my nieces, Eiley, and Blake, and I was trying to get them all to go to the bathroom and change from costumes to pajamas, and that was an easy space to go and do it where I could keep an eye on all of them as everybody kind of went to the bathroom and did their thing and then changed. So yeah, tip for people traveling in groups or just a private bathroom area. It's a nicer on the nicer side. So that is the Cosmic Ray Starlight Cafe. And then Auntie Gravity's Galactic Goodies, which is next door, that also opened June of 1994. And this is just a pretty quick dessert place. They do have ice cream. They also have some different donut holes I read that you can buy that they also can put in the ice cream. There's some different options now than what they used to have. They do also have some coffee related things, so some cold brew floats. There's something specifically called, I'm trying to remember it's an asteroid shake. So it's chocolate shake with hot fudge, whipped cream, chocolate donut holes, and graham cracker crumbs. They do have salted caramel cold brew floats, and then that has like salted caramel brownie sundaes. They have a lot of different options there, but it is a pretty small place. There's not really tables to sit and eat. You kind of pick it up and take it out and go eat either at tables outside or find a place to quickly eat it or eat it as you walk. But this ranges from about $6 to $9. And this, I guess, I was reading, like trying to figure it out on the map, but used to be called the lunching pad. So they kind of shifted. The Cosmic Rays was Tomorrowland Terrace. The lunching pad was currently where Auntie Gravity's Galactic Goodies is. And then both of those restaurants got moved as they did this Tomorrowland expansion. But did you remember that it was the lunching pad before that? I don't think I knew that.
No, about before that, I only had two trips there in 73 and 78. So I would have really
Stick out to you.
bought
Yeah.
that. Yeah. But I know we went to which we'll talk about, the other lunching pad. We hit that quite often. So,
Yes. Yes, we did. Yep. And then kind of near there is a little almost just station called Energy Bites. and they used to just have like sodas and different things, but they got a new menu June of 2024, and now they serve things like watermelon slushies, blue coconut slushies, cucumber lime soda, and a watermelon, cucumber, and pineapple cup, which all kind of run individually about $6 to $7. This sounds disgusting to me. I don't know. None of it sounded like very appetizing. I don't know why they switched it. They must have just been trying to appeal to some healthier options. But everything I read about it from people who tried the new menu said the cucumber lime soda is not great. And if you want a cup of fruit, it's a pretty expensive cup of fruit. So it's not super popular from what I read. But if people like it, correct me if I'm wrong, but I have not heard very many people that have tried what's there now and said like they were super excited about it. And there's another place right near there called Joffrey's Coffee and Tea Company Revive. And that the only thing that I saw that was really unique, they do have just a coffee and tea, like plain options, but then they have this Mission to S'mores latte, which has a more of like a marshmallowy taste with some chocolate. They do have frozen lemonade there, and then just some assorted pastries. So that's again another like kind of walk up to the space. It's outdoors, not really seating and stuff around it, but that's runs for about $4 to $7. But either of those places, I don't really remember getting stuff from either of those. Energy Bites, I feel like used to be called something else, and I want to say that's the thing that kind of looks like a big Coke bottle that's kind of near where they have like mist coming out of it or something. I don't know if I'm remembering that right. It's over kind of by Space Mountain, I think. But neither one of these places were places that we really stopped at. I don't know that I've ever stopped at either. So
Yeah, I don't remember. Remember either one of those. I know the Coke bottle you're talking about, but whether that's one of these or not, yeah, those are a little bit foreign to me. So
yeah, yeah. And then the lunching pad, which we definitely frequented. So initially opened in 1971 at the other location and then moved in the 90s. So it reopened June 1994 underneath the Rocket Tower Plaza Station, which is right underneath the TTA and then Astro Orbiter above it. And it was formerly occupied, I can't talk tonight, by the Space Bar. And they do actually now have breakfast options, I guess, but they now have breakfast bowls. They do have pretzels. They have the sticky bubble bread, but what we know it for are the slushies. We would almost always stop there and get a slushie. They used to have Coke, raspberry, and cherry, and you could get a combo of those or just one or the other. They do have hot dogs that are served there as well, but I like very fondly remember stopping there, getting a slushie, taking a break, kind of getting a little away from the heat, and would almost always get some combination of either Coke and cherry or cherry and blue raspberry slushy. So that was one of my favorite places to go, and it still is when we want to get a slushie. I'm like, oh, let's go over to the lunching pad and grab a slushie real quick. Did they used to serve other stuff too, Dad, really? Or I feel like it was really just drinks back a long time
I
ago.
thought they had turkey legs and stuff there
Oh,
too.
maybe.
Back in the day, I remember people buying those. I thought it was there, but yeah, we would never miss that. It'd be like mid-afternoon, kind of between lunch and dinner, and we're sweating it out at the Magic
Yeah.
Kingdom, and we would stop and get our. I think you used to mix yours all the time, did you? Like to
Mm-hmm.
mix yours up. I always got a
Yeah.
Coke one, big surprise. Your brother, I don't know if you got the blue one or whatever, but I remember that's something we always did. That was like a very common thing to do mid-afternoon.
Yeah, yep, exactly. And it's a convenient location, kind of right in the middle of everything. I know often, as we've mentioned a few times, Mom and Regan would kind of hang out there and drink those slushies or whatever, and we would go ride Space Mountain or do something else while they waited for us. So that was always a fun little stop of the day in Tomorrowland. And then the last restaurant in Tomorrowland is the Tomorrowland Terrace restaurant. And this is now only open seasonally. It is the location currently for the Magic Kingdom dessert fireworks viewing party, but it used to be an actual restaurant and it used to have like pizza, then changed to noodles. Like they had some Asian food there for a little bit. But now, I guess seasonally, when it's open, it actually serves food that's similar to the Columbia Harbor House menu, I read. But I have rarely seen it open. I don't think any of the more recent trips that I've been in I've seen anybody in there except for at the fireworks time, and they get to sit kind of right in the good spot to view the fireworks. It is a great spot for fireworks, but I feel like this is a huge missed opportunity for space because they could use it to do something else. They could enclose it and either make a better restaurant or do something different. It's really prime real estate, right? Most people use it as a cut through. So getting off of Main Street back through to Tomorrowland. When you come out of it into Tomorrowland, the big famous purple wall is over there that a lot of people take pictures with nowadays. But I haven't seen it open in years. I do remember when it switched to the noodles menu and being kind of disappointed because prior to that, we used to stop there for pizza or whatever and hang out. And before it was blocked off for fireworks for the dessert party, sometimes if you got there early enough, you could just get your pizza or your food or whatever and go sit down and watch the fireworks right there, which was a great spot. But what do you remember about this, Dad? And have you seen it open recently when you've been in different trips?
No, it seems to always be closed. And I remember when it changed to the noodle station, I was very disappointed because we used to like get our pizza there. And it's kind of neat because people don't think about the layout of the Magic Kingdom, but when you get to the end of Main Street, you hang a hard right, and there's some bathrooms there on the right as you work your
Yeah.
way in. That's Tomorrowland. It's like right there. That's where it
Mm-hmm.
starts. And I remember back in the day, though, this is way back in the 70s. If you walk into that area and you go where you'd order your food and you can go sit down kind of more on that upper level that's on the far right. It's elevated a little bit. There's a little ramp that
Yeah.
goes up. It's kind of across from the fireworks viewing area. There was people playing instruments like a small band. This is back in the 70s again. I think it was our trip maybe in 73. There's like a kind of like a mini stage way on the far right, and people were up there playing music.
Oh, wow.
And that, I mean, this is back in the 70s. We had a lot of these extra special things going on all over the park that
Yeah.
I wish they'd bring some of this stuff back would be awesome. Um, there's a cost to it, of course, and that's probably why they're not doing
Yeah.
it. But yeah, so, but I remember doing that. And then with you guys, we'd always love to get something there and sit in the fireworks viewing area now that you could never seem to get into anymore. That's a great place. It's a beautiful place because you're right there by the water, the little river area there, the moat by the castle, and you can see out across that whole area, across the hub. And yeah, I love that area. I just wish it would come back to life like it was.
I do too. I wish that it would either come back to life as it was or they do something better with it, make it more of a themed restaurant. Because as we just talked about, there's no sit down restaurant at all in Tomorrowland. And really, the only quick service actual food place is Cosmic Rays Starlight Cafe. So it's really lacking in the food area. And there's just a lot of empty real estate there. So that's something I definitely want to talk about as we get into our Parks of the Future episodes in the future. But right there between that and Monsters Inc. Laugh Floor, which butts up right to that, they could totally ground that area and make a huge attraction in there or make something really cool out of that area. There's just a lot of unused or not used well space in Tomorrowland. So a lot of open real estate that they could do stuff with. And then the only other thing to touch on were character meet and greets. And really, nowadays, there aren't many. There used to be a pretty regular Buzz Lightyear meet and greet right outside of Buzz Lightyear Space Ranger Spin, but I haven't seen him out there in years. Occasionally, Stitch will be out outside of where Stitch's Great Escape used to be. I haven't seen that in years. There's really not very many characters out and about during regular daytime hours. That being said, during the Halloween party, as well as after hours events or Christmas parties, the stage in Tomorrowland that's kind of right across from Astro Orbiter where the line is. It's pretty small. There's no seating there anymore. But that used to be where they would have a lot of characters out during those Halloween parties. They'd have dance parties that have a little DJ, and they still do, as far as what I had seen when we had gone to our last Halloween party, which is a fun little area to be in. So that's really the only place that I see characters very often, but not a lot of meet and greets in Tomorrowland. But do you remember? I know Buzz and Stitch, but I can't really think of anybody else that was regularly out. Can you?
No, not that I remember. I know I just remember Buzz Lightyear. I still think he is there next to Space Ranger Spin, right? He does.
I think he does sometimes, but he's not listed on the app that I could
Oh,
find
okay,
as like
okay,
a. I think because now they're all in Toy Story Land.
okay. That would make sense. And I know they don't want him, and just like Mickey, they try not to have Mickey,
Out
a
more
bunch
than
of
once.
Mickeys all over the place, right? So it's the same
Yeah.
probably concept. But no, I don't really remember other characters other than Stitch and Buzz. And that was pretty much it. And like you said, I think that's quieted down quite a bit.
Yeah, it's definitely quieted down a lot. And then the other thing that we wanted to talk about before we move out of Tomorrowland is the Tomorrowland trash can that was big years ago. It was named Push. And this was also at Disneyland, the California Adventure Park, Hong Kong Disneyland, Disneyland Paris, and Tokyo Disneyland. But it was created by a guy named Daniel Deutsch, I'm probably saying that wrong, and entertained guests at the Magic Kingdom starting in February 1995. At one point, the robot was kind of this grassroots effort to elect him as mayor of Tomorrowland. They kind of did this little like, let's make Push the Talking Trash Can the mayor. But then on February 10th, 2014, he ended and he was retired at Disney World. I think he still does exist in some of the other parks, but there was this whole social media campaign on Twitter, which had the save push. And so people really didn't want him to go away. I don't know why he had to go away. I guess it's another thing where they just had to pay someone to walk around and do that, and they just didn't want to. But it was really cool. Basically, this guy walked around and he operated the transmitter in this strapped gym bag looking thing. He was just in regular clothes, looked like he was there at the park, and then was able to talk like he was the trash can and actually say like nice shirt guy, or like I see Mickey on your shirt, or something like that, so that people are like, whoa, how does this trash can know this, how is this trash can talking? But it was a guy kind of in the corner operating everything. And we saw this. There also was like a palm tree in Animal Kingdom that we had seen that was similarly operated. But I remember seeing this quite a bit out in Tomorrowland. Almost every trip we would kind of spot the guy, and it was kind of fun to figure out where the guy was. But yeah, what else do you remember about Push?
Well, yeah, that was probably your dad saying, "Okay, I read up on how this works," because he does a real good job of hiding it. He kind of holds his hand over his mouth, kind of like he's watching, and then he kind of wanders around and looks away a little bit. So if you're not paying attention, everyone's watching the trash can. You don't really notice the guy. He did a real good
Yeah.
job of kind of staying, and we kind of look around. Oh, one hand was in his pocket because he's driving, the remote control robotic trash can, and the other hand he was doing the talking. Listen, I thought it was really, again, it's one of those Disney things. I wish they would have kept around. Those are all the little stuff that makes it kind of the magic. It's not always just the attractions. It's all these little things that they did that made it special. I wish they'd
Yeah.
kind of bring it back, right? But they probably never will. So,
Yeah, yeah, I do wish that they would bring it back as well. It was just something kind of fun and unique that was different. Like you said, it's just the little things that kind of made it special. And whoa, how does that work? And then trying to figure it out. And it was just really magical for sure as a kid. And then for our old versus new, that's pretty much everything in Tomorrowland. But our old versus new, I had a hard time kind of picking something that would work well that we've both been on, but I decided to do Alien Encounter versus Stitch's Great Escape. So which one did you prefer? I do remember we talked a little bit about this in our Park to the Past episode when Regan was on, but the Alien Encounter ride I rode, I think twice with you, and that was it because it was pretty freaky. It was definitely a scarier ride for Disney World, which is typically more magical, not as scary. And I just remember the alien being really creepy. Looking at pictures of him now, I guess he's not as scary as I thought he was. I feel like the alien in Great Movie Ride from the movie was way creepier. And in my head, I thought this was the same alien, but it's not. It's just this kind of weird looking robot alien dude. But what do you remember about Alien Encounter?
I think the first time I ever went on it was with you. I never went on it back in the 70s. I thought it kind of freaked me out a little bit,
Yeah.
even as an adult. And at the time we went, I was probably, I don't know, thinking back, I was probably in my 30s. but I
Yeah.
but it gets real dark, and you're kind of, I think the thing that probably not bothered me, but was kind of scary was the fact that that harness comes over your shoulders and it
Yeah.
kind of pinches you right in there. It's like
Yep.
it was almost kind of uncomfortable. I'm not real tall. I'm only about 6 foot tall, but it still made me uncomfortable because it kind of squeezed you in there. And it got dark. It was pitch black, and all of a sudden,
Yeah.
these things are happening, and they're saying this alien got loose, and
Yeah.
they're doing this experiment, and I mean, that was really well done. I kind of wish they would have kept that, but of course, Stitch became popular. They probably had to think how they had to retheme that and get, um, get Stitch in there and do that. And I thought that was good. But I definitely would like to see Alien Encounter come back. So I would definitely have to go with Alien Encounter on that one.
Okay, yeah, I feel like even so, Stitch was pretty similar in that it locked you in. It got dark at times. Obviously, it wasn't quite as scary because it was Stitch, but I
Right.
really did not like the feeling of being locked in that thing. That definitely bothered me too. And Maddie's mom, who's pretty claustrophobic, when we were just married and before we moved to North Carolina, we all went on this trip to Disney and she went on that with us and she is extremely like does not do well in tight spaces and she was freaking out. She did not like it at all. It wasn't even about the ride being scary. It was just being stuck in this thing. And like you said, it's really tight. So yeah, didn't really love that. I like Stitch. I think Stitch is a cute IP. I don't really know why they got rid of it because I feel like it always had somewhat of a line. I never really saw it empty. And now it's just another abandoned area of the park where they have this open real estate. And it was a pretty good amount of space because you have the loading area. There's kind of two pre-shows, if I'm remembering right. There was an initial where you walked in and you had to wait, and then you walked in again and had to wait, and then you got into the ride, I believe. There was at least one for sure, and then also a waiting area outside. So I know Stitch is coming back around because they have the new live action movie coming out this summer, but I can't imagine them bringing that back. But I just wish they'd do something with the space. Even if it wasn't Alien Encounter or Stitch, I just wish it was something. I think out of the two, I preferred Stitch mostly because Alien Encounter really freaked me out. But I do think there could be so much else done there, and they don't really have anything alien-like in Tomorrowland anymore. So that goes kind of with the theme of space and, unknown and what's out there in the future. So I definitely think it fit better than Stitch more. But yeah, that's so I think I would pick Stitch only because of the scare factor, but it's definitely sad that it's an empty space with nothing else there for now. And then our trivia for this week for Tomorrowland, I wanted to try to pick some more Tomorrowland specific trivia, but the question was, how many attractions were open in Tomorrowland on the Magic Kingdom's opening day on October 1st, 1971? And the answers are one, none, two, or five. I'm trying to think what would have the TTA probably.
I think wasn't there a 360 show where Dream the time it was a timekeeper,
Timekeeper.
Eric?
Yeah,
But
so maybe
it was
something
it was a
else.
360 movie, America the Beautiful or something like that, if I remember,
Yeah,
something like that. So that would have been there. I think Mission to the Moon or something, a Mission to
yeah,
Mars, I think was there. I think it was the moon first, then I went to Mars, which is where Stitch and Alien were.
yep.
So
And
the
then
Space
maybe
Mountain wasn't there.
Buzz
Carousel came in late.
Lightyear.
Carousel, Buzz Lightyear wasn't there. Carousel.
But what was,
If you had
yeah,
Wing, was where Buzz is now, and I think that was an opening day attraction too.
and the
I
Speedway.
and, and the Speedway definitely. I would have to go with five, but who
Okay.
knows? Maybe they opened a month after or something. You know how that goes. It's probably a trick
Let's
question.
see. I know. Yeah, that's true. Let's see what it was. Oh, it was two.
There you
So,
go.
okay. So
So
there were
stuff.
two. It said Tomorrowland was not finished, so only two attractions were
Okay.
open. They like to
Okay.
trick you. The
Yes, I
the
figured so.
Speedway and then also actually Skyway to Fantasyland. So before
Skyway.
the Sky, yeah, the Skyliner Skyway, whatever it was called back. So that used to take off. Actually, didn't that take off from like right near Tomorrowland Terrace or Cosmic Rays? Where was that?
No,
That landed.
it took off between Space Mountain, right next to the bathrooms. Space
Oh, all the way
those
over
bathrooms.
there.
It was that's where it started in Tomorrowland, and then it ended up where uh
The Tangled bathrooms are.
the Tangle bathrooms are now. That's where it ended up in Fantasyland.
Okay, okay. I don't think I realized that it went all the way back to where Space Mountain was. I guess I'm thinking where Tinkerbell lands. She lands on top of, doesn't she land on top of Cosmic Rays? Maybe. I gotta look that
That,
up.
or I think it's further down. I think it's probably on top of the other restaurant we were talking about,
Oh,
Tomorrowland
Tomorrowland
Terrace.
Terrace.
I think she landed
Okay.
kind of back there and then goes into the parking area back, climbs down a ladder
Okay.
or something probably.
Okay, interesting. Yeah. Yeah. So that's everything about Tomorrowland. And now when you exit Tomorrowland and you're going towards the exit of the park, if you walk towards the castle, that's kind of the next area that we're going to talk about and get into some information about the castle. But the castle at Magic Kingdom, in my opinion, is unmatched. I think it's the best castle of them all. It's really beautiful. And I think compared to Disneyland's castle, when you come from Disney World and you go to Disneyland, it's almost a little dinky castle. It's like, oh, where's their tiny castle? It's just so much bigger, taller than the Disneyland. And then we'll kind of talk about some of the illusions that they use to make it seem even bigger than it is. But it is a really neat castle. It was inspired by a bunch of real and fictional palaces across the world. So there is a castle in so the Alcazar of Segovia, the Shorwen Castle, Hohenzollern Castle, Chateau d'Ussé, Chateau de Semur, Pierrefonds, Chambord, the Neuschwanstein Castle in Bavaria, and also the Craigievar Castle in Scotland. They also kind of took some inspiration from the Notre Dame in Paris, also the Mosna Castle in Poland, and then the Tyne Church in Prague, Czech Republic, which was built back in the 14th century. So there was this chief designer who worked on the Magic Kingdom castle. His name was Herbert Ryman, and he referenced the original design from the film franchise Cinderella, obviously why it's called Cinderella's Castle. But then also he helped create the Sleeping Beauty Castle at Disneyland in California. So he wanted to make it different, but still keep it very, regal and based off of these elaborate palaces seen across the world. So the Cinderella Castle was completed July 1971, so just a couple of months before the park opened, and it took about 18 months to construct. The actual castle is 183 feet tall, but then by adding the depth of the moat and the bridge, I guess it totals right under 190 feet. It's 189 feet total. And it is more than 100 feet taller than Sleeping Beauty Castle. So that definitely makes up for why it looks so tiny because it's like half the size. And then they also did this set building trick that's called forced perspective, which makes the castle look larger than it actually is because they have these higher elevations that help proportion like full scale. They're reduced for the stones, the windows, the doors, so it makes it look like it's farther away or higher up than what it actually is. And it's also designed to reflect this late Gothic, more flamboyant style of the 1400s. And unlike Disneyland's castle, they actually didn't use any actual gold on the exterior. All the gold colors are actually this and anodized aluminum. So none of it is actually gold, or the initial castle had no actual gold on it, which Disneyland's castle does, which is kind of interesting. And so despite the castle's appearance, there actually are no bricks that are used in the construction of it. The inner structure consists of actually 600 tons of steel braced frame, and they have this 10-inch thick reinforced concrete wall that encircles the structure to kind of look like a stone like wall. And all of the steel and concrete works are supported on this concrete drilled foundation. And there also a lot of people over time, there's been a lot of rumors about if a hurricane came, they could disassemble the castle and save it. But it's everything at Walt Disney World is constructed to withstand 125 mile per hour winds in Central Florida, which Central Florida doesn't typically get as bad of the hurricane winds as other places because they're not right on the water. But yeah, do you remember ever hearing that rumor about hurricanes, Dad, about them having to like dismantle the castle? Or I know this year with hurricanes, I saw a lot of like fake AI generated images of Magic Kingdom being like totally ripped apart from the hurricanes, but I don't know if that's something that was like commonly talked about a long time ago.
Yeah, I remember that being like a Disney legend or Disney rumor. Most
Yeah.
people knew it wasn't true that they were going to break down the castle or could break it down. But here comes a hurricane. Let's dismantle the castle. I mean, just to make a castle that could do that, the cost would be so ridiculous. And if you can imagine, the cost is break it down and put it back together again, or take the turrets off, or whatever they would do.
Yeah.
It's just kind of a silly thing that it's been going around for years and years.
Yeah. And then something else that I didn't know about this castle is that it is obviously surrounded by a moat, which contains about 3.37 million US gallons of water. But unlike the Sleeping Beauty Castle at Disneyland, the drawbridge actually cannot be raised. I didn't know that Disneyland's could be raised. So they actually can pull it up and kind of close up the castle. Disneyland's is just built. You can't close it up. There's nothing to close. It's all just there. It's not able to move up and down. But I didn't realize that in Disneyland, theirs can actually go up and down, which is kind of cool. And
Yeah,
then they,
they actually, I'll just interrupt you just for a second.
yeah,
Opening ceremonies in 1955, I think I have some DVD videos I should get to you so you can see. It's just really interesting how they lowered the drawbridge down, and then Mickey and Minnie came running out, and of course Mickey and Minnie didn't look the same as they do now. The costumes
yeah.
are pretty crazy. But and then the different anniversaries over the years, back in the day, they opened and lowered it for different occasions. I've seen a lot of video of that
Oh,
over the years. If they have they done it recently, I don't know, but this is back like in the 50s and 60s. They would do it from time to time.
okay. That's kind of cool that it's like functional and that they built it to
Yeah,
be functional. That's pretty
yeah.
neat. And then there are 27 towers on the castle. They were initially going to be numbered 1 to 29, but towers number 13 and 17 actually got canceled before the construction finished because they found out that they really couldn't be seen from anywhere in the park, so they were a little pointless, so they didn't put the money into constructing them because of all the other Fantasyland buildings and different things that they had going on. So the tower with the clock in the front in the main part of the castle is number 10. The tallest is number 20. And number 23 is a golden roofed tower. It looks like it's gold. Obviously, like we said, there's no actual gold used in the construction. And originally, there was a suite planned for the Disney family and executives within the castle. But then Walt Disney died nearly 5 years before the park opened. So it remained unfinished, but eventually was turned into a telephone call center, a dressing room, and currently is a hotel room. There are three different elevators inside the actual castle. One is for guests to use that goes between the lobby of Cinderella's Royal Table and the second floor restaurant. And then the second is for restaurant staff use that's located in tower number 2, kind of to the left of the drawbridge. And it has landings in the utilidors, the mezzanine level in a break room, and then also the second floor in the kitchen near the restaurant area. There is the third elevator, and that's in tower number 20, and that does service the utilidors as well. There's a breezeway, the kitchen of Cinderella's Royal Table also, and then the Cinderella Castle Suite. That suite that is still there today is about 30 feet below where the zip line cable where Tinkerbell flies off of for the fireworks shows. And that zip line cable is attached to tower number 20. And you get up to that cable by ladder. So she actually has to climb up there before she hooks herself onto the zip line and flies down across the castle. So from January 2007 to December 2009, the suite was used as a prize, which I remember very clearly that they had these Disney Dreams giveaways at the Walt Disney World Resort during this Year of a Million Dreams and 35th anniversary celebration. And I remember it was a big deal. They had commercials all over the place to enter your name into these contests to win a night to sleep in Cinderella's castle, which is really, really cool. And do you remember when they first started advertising this, Dad, like being able to sleep in the castle and that there was this amazing suite inside?
Yeah, I thought it was great. It's finally like use the space. Probably the way they kind of intended it, because it was supposed to be for Walt Disney and his family, like the one that they have on Main Street at Disneyland that you can
Yeah,
go tour. Um, that he actually spent time in with his family and his kids, which is super
yeah,
cool. But yeah, so I was glad to see it. But yeah, I do remember the big build up to that, and then finally seeing video of how what the inside looked like. Yeah, I think it's really wonderful. I would all love to kind of stay there for a night.
yeah,
I think it has to be a prize, or I don't think you can. I don't think any money can actually buy a night there. From what I heard, it's
yeah.
Disney selects the people, and I don't know. I don't know if they do. different things with Make Kids the World or something. Maybe I don't know. That would be cool if they used it for things like that or Make a Wish or something like that. That would be a good use of it. But I haven't done any research on that lately. But I just thought I was glad they finally really finished it off, and it looks like it's a pretty amazing suite for sure.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think you can't just pay a bunch of money to stay in it. You have to win it, or there's like certain circumstances. But it's kind of cool that you can't just pay a lump sum of money, and because then I think really wealthy people would be doing that all the time. So it is neat that
Right.
it's, very few and far between. It's like a pretty special thing to get to do. And then on February 17th, 2020, in honor of the 70th anniversary of the release of the movie Cinderella, Disney announced that the castle would be getting repainted within the spring and summer. And they repainted the roofs to this dark blue, as well as like a slight rose pink color. There's more gold trim accents on the castle, along with this darker stone, which is a little closer to the color of the Sleeping Beauty castle. And it was all visible while they were working on it. And the fireworks shows still continued. They didn't close everything down. But then when COVID-19 forced the park to close, it was a good time for them to finish it. So they did a majority of the work during that time when no one was there anyway. And the paint job was done in July 2020, right after the park reopened from COVID. And originally, these tower spires were painted like a bluish purple, but then were painted back to royal blue in the spring of 2021 as Disney began to put up the 50th anniversary decorations. I remember when this was first released and that they showed the pictures of the castle because I know Regan went like the day before everything shut down in March of 2020, and then he went shortly after because he was living there in July of 2020. And we didn't go again until after things were repainted, I believe. I don't think they were as dark. I'll have to look at pictures, but I remember being really sad because I really liked the original castle, the more like silver and gray colors. I thought adding the pink just made it look too similar to Sleeping Beauty Castle in the style. I don't know. I really didn't love the pinkish colors that they added to the castle. What were your opinions on that when they first changed it?
I was like you. I didn't like it. I think it looks almost cartoonish when they start doing pink
Yeah,
and different colors. Yeah, I like the original, kind of a blue color, right? Kind of a gray blue color.
silvery, yeah, blue.
Yeah, it just seemed to work. Yeah, it just seemed to work and that's the way it was for so many years. So to change it and then for a little while, okay, and change it back, and that's what they've done over the years. But yeah, I didn't care for that at all.
Yeah. And then there have been a lot of changes to the castle in the past, which we really didn't touch on in our Parks of the Past episode very much at all. But the big change that I remember that I'm sure you do too, we have a bunch of pictures, was the maybe horrible, maybe, I don't know, castle cake that they used to commemorate the 25th anniversary of Walt Disney World Resort. It opened up like this on October 1st, 1996, and they transformed the front of the castle into this 18-story birthday cake. It had red and pink icing, giant candy canes, glowing candles, and then the castle is kind of the centerpiece. And it was a 15-month long celebration designed by Walt Disney Entertainment and then constructed by the Imagineers. It took 400 US gallons of pink paint to cover the castle, which was decorated with these multicolored sprinkles. The candles were between 20 to 40 feet tall. They had big 16 2-foot long candy stars, all these candy bears, gumdrops. I actually, when I was a kid, and even I think like looking back, because when we went for the celebration, I was pretty young, but I thought that it was all inflatable. Like it looked so different. I thought they put something like over the castle or something because it just didn't even look the same at all. But we went, and I'm trying to remember exactly when. I'd have to look, I think, at pictures, but Regan
We
was
were
pretty small, like February of 20.
Yeah, well, we went in '96 when before Regan was born, but your mom was pregnant with Regan.
Yep.
I remember those pictures. And then we went again in the next year in the spring of '97. So that's when we
Okay.
saw the birthday cake. And there was a lot of inflatable pieces on it because it's probably an inexpensive way to do it without repainting the whole castle. But I thought it
Yeah.
was absolutely hideous. I
Yeah.
was like, you've got to be
Yeah.
and I think a lot of people felt that way too. I mean, it was just and after a while, I'm sure the Imagineers get, how do you keep re-theming the castle, But I just thought it was it was pretty silly.
Yeah, it was very silly and definitely didn't look super, I don't know, classy and elegant like the original castle did. So I definitely don't love the look. It was changed back January 31st, 1998 to its original state. But yeah, I vividly remembered this and was looking back at pictures the other day. We have a lot of video footage of that trip. So just thinking about you know, how different it looked, it just blows my mind that they did that. But another change that they did was November 16th, 2004. The castle was modified to appear like it looked like it had toilet paper all over it. And it was to promote Stitch's Great Escape. And then after that day, the material was removed when the park closed. So it was only really on that day. But the most recent redecoration that they had at Magic Kingdom was to celebrate Walt Disney World's 50th anniversary, which we were there for a couple of visits during this time. And it was known as the world's most magical celebration, which started October 1st, 2021, and lasted through March 31st, 2023. So quite a long time, another like 18-month celebration, I think, just so they could keep all the stuff up and use all the merch that they spent money on designing. And it was revealed the design was first revealed in February of 2021, and they called these things iridescent. So, kind of saying ear as in mouse ear, EAR, iridescent pieces, as Disney referred to them. They put some gold detailing, some royal blue jewels, some shimmering pearls, draping ribbons, and on the castle's turrets. And then the final decoration was this big, giant 50th crest that covers the clock on the front face of the castle, and that was installed the night of July 22nd, 2021. But then they started taking everything down following the final performance of Disney's Enchantment. They removed that 50th crest, and now that is all done. So for now, Disney World does not have any other major celebrations coming up where they would change the castle. Disneyland is about to hit a big milestone of 75 or 70th year anniversary, I think. And we will be there for that this coming summer. But the changes to the castle, I think this most recent one was fine. I don't like when they cover up the clock because I think it takes away from the castle. But otherwise, I did think this most recent one was better than some of the ones that they've done in the past. And because you were there during this time period as well, do you remember it looking like super different? Or I mean, it didn't really seem that different other than the big crest and then I guess some of these items that they added on.
Yeah, it was definitely jazzed up more, a lot of gold and stuff. I thought it was really well done. Of course, I
Hmm.
think they dragged out the celebration so long because that's kind of when COVID was going on, right? I mean, it was kind
True.
of
Yeah.
oh,
Like
everything was
post
kind of a
COVID.
mess then. Everyone's running around with their masks on and everything. I remember it. I thought that was really cool. Another thing that you mentioned early on, talking about Herbert Ryman, or they called him Herbie Ryman.
Yeah.
He was one of the engineers back in the day that helped. He basically designed and drew up the artwork for the original Disneyland castle,
Hmm.
and he helped Walt Disney do the original map of Disneyland before it even opened Disneyland. He sat
Oh,
down with
cool.
Walt and they worked on it all. He drew it like all weekend, that big map back in like 1953. And when they were showing Walt the model of the castle for Disneyland, before he came in the room, all the Imagineers were in there. They're going to show this castle to Walt and see what he thought. Herbie picked up the upper level of the castle and turned it around. He said, "Oh, look, it turns around." He set it down, and everyone's saying, "Herbie, turn it back the way it was. Walt's coming in at any time." And Walt comes in, and he didn't get a chance to flip it. And Walt Disney looks at it and goes, "I really like it like that. So let's build it like that." So when you see it, it's
Oh,
actually the top floor is reversed around the way it was actually designed to be. But
oh,
Walt
that's
liked it so much
funny.
they kept it that way. Yeah, it's a story I heard a long time ago, but I thought that was kind of cool.
That is cool. That's really neat that he was so involved in the creative decision-making process for a lot of Disneyland too, like the map and everything, just
Oh,
drawing everything out. That's really
absolutely.
neat.
And the castle in Disney World, he was involved in that pretty heavily too. That was toward his end of his years with Disney, but yeah, he was very talented.
Yeah, cool. That's awesome. And then there also are castle shows that kind of changed throughout time. There's been so many, it would be silly to talk about all of them. The current show is called Mickey's Magical Friendship Fair, and that is shown about 4 to 5 times a day. It's about 15 to 20 minutes long. And this is something that I remember from all of our videos from the 25th anniversary was this castle show during that time period. I haven't watched a ton of the more recent castle shows. I know they do, like I said, play pretty often 45 times a day. But I do remember specifically, I think, videos of the 25th anniversary where they would announce different families and have them come out on stage with like a year. And it was a pretty, I wanted to say it was a longer than 20-minute show back then, but maybe it just felt that way as a kid. But they used to be really elaborate and have a lot more characters. I remember Mary Poppins and Peter Pan and all these different characters that you don't see as often these days. Now I feel like it's a lot more Mickey, Minnie, like the original gang, and then some princesses. But back then they really had a lot of characters involved. And I guess that's true for the parades as well, but of the stage shows. But do you remember any specific stage shows that like stick out in your mind or anything that you recall being super special? I feel like it's not something we take that much time to do.
Yeah, we did that. As you know, I filmed just about everything I could possibly
Yeah.
film back in the day with the old video camera. But yeah, and I think the reason maybe it felt longer was because it's like the first time we ever saw it. It's the first time you remember going to Disney
Yeah.
World and Magic Kingdom, and everything is the first time you see something, and then you see it maybe two or three or four or 100 times later. Like you guys, I've seen a lot of things over and over and over. They don't seem as long or maybe quite as magical, but that first time you go, I remember even going to Epcot and all the other places too. It was me for the first time, those
Yeah.
places, and it was yeah, things just seem to last longer and be maybe more spectacular than you maybe they actually were. I don't know. I just think that has something to do with just the first time you go.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. That does make it a little more special. Well, that is everything as far as the castle goes that we had today. Was there anything else you wanted to add about the castle, Dad, or anything memory wise that you can think of?
I always like the idea that you could, and I don't know if you still can. Maybe you could clarify this. Used to walk through the castle. Do they let you walk through the castle anymore?
I don't think so. I'd have to like look that up, but I haven't
That's
been able to walk through or I haven't seen the opportunity to walk through at Walt Disney World in a long time.
that's crazy because you got these beautiful mosaics inside. Do you remember the
Mm-hmm.
mosaics? There was a
Yeah,
French uh, artist that did that. The whole story of Cinderella. I think there's like I'm guessing 5 or 6, 7 panels. Are huge, and they're
yeah.
all mosaics done with tile. I mean, it's amazing. And why they don't let you walk through to get that view of Fantasyland, walking through the castle? That's the whole idea. That's the whole, you walk in and you see the carousel right out of the gate there and everything. It's super cool. And I don't remember walking through the castle in years.
Yeah,
So
I just looked it up. It does say, well, this is years ago. I mean, yeah, I think it's like timing it with the shows, and the shows have been, um, you
more
know,
frequent, maybe.
yeah, more frequent, but it
Okay.
does say that sometimes it's like on occasion. It just depends in what they have going on, but it's not all the time for sure. So yeah, because
That's
I know
crazy. Yeah, that's crazy.
Disneyland, they actually have like an attraction where you can walk down. There's like almost a dungeon area with the dragon, which we did not get
Yes.
to do last time. So I definitely want to do when we're there this summer. But yeah, that's like part of the appeal of the castle is like you get to walk through. Obviously, you can't tour the entire castle, but you can walk kind of through that little dungeon dragon area with the dragon from, well, Maleficent from Sleeping Beauty. But yeah, the mosaics are really cool. They remind me a lot of what people say over at the Riviera. They've done a lot of those mosaic tile, like they have a Tangled one, a Peter Pan one,
Mm.
just really cool artwork. And so this, yeah, is very similar, kind of was the earlier version of that, but it is really pretty. If you ever get the chance to walk through, definitely recommend it if you can, because it's very pretty. And it's a cool way to get into Fantasyland. I think walking through the castle is pretty unique. But yeah, it's been a long, long time since we've even seen the opportunity to do that.
And you can even walk through. When you walk through, I remember too, back in the day, there was a store on the left hand side past the mosaics where you could go buy all these weapons like swords
Oh
and all
yeah.
this
Mm-hmm.
medieval stuff. Remember that?
Yeah.
I mean, the obviously the items were very expensive. It's like, and maybe because they don't want people to be walking around with swords around
Yeah.
Disney World, the Magic Kingdom. Maybe there's a threat there with all the crazy things that are happening in the world. They don't have that anymore. But I thought that was kind of a neat store. I remember walking through there, and again, the prices were just way beyond my pay grade. But it was a
Yeah.
cool store.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, a lot of changes over the year for sure. Well, next week we will be wrapping it up with Main Street, kind of getting into the last few attractions as well as the history of Main Street and kind of what makes, Main Street so special. Obviously, it's a little different than Disneyland's Main Street, but does have its own unique little things and fun things that we've liked to do over the years. Also seen some change, but not a ton of change over the years since opening times. So we will look forward to getting into that. But thanks for joining us again today, Dad, and we will see y'all next week.
Okay, see you on Main Street.
Hey, thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to give us a follow on Instagram at Soarin Around WDW Pod, where we share fun reels, throwback photos, and dive into our old versus new debates. If you're listening on YouTube, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment. And for our Spotify listeners, a follow and a 5-star review would mean the world. Thanks again for joining us. See you next time.